I'm Tom from Do-It-Yourself Home Automation, and this is a look at identifying hotspots and insulation issues in a outdoor fridge using my FLIR One Generation 3 thermal camera. So this camera is actually showing you in the app here the heat in the image that I'm showing. So the lighter areas correspond to hotter areas. And as I've shown in other videos, this is the FLIR One Generation 3 camera. It costs about $200, and it's great for looking at things around your home and seeing the heat generated by them. So this is my outdoor, garage refrigerator and freezer that I use for storing kind of long-term things. It's mostly empty right now. So I just want to take a look and show with your fridge or freezer where you might be able to find hot spots and cool spots. And again, the thermal camera is great for that. So first, let's look at the outside. You can see it's doing a pretty good job of insulating. There's not a lot of heat escaping or coming into the device. It's pretty cold on the outside. Obviously around the seal is where we're getting the most heat flux through here. And interestingly, it's not at the corners, it's actually sort of in the middle of that seal there, which I guess makes sense because the corners are probably closest to the side, and if this buckles out at all, you're going to have a little bit of loss there. Probably not overall a problem, but you can take a look at the actual insulation on the side there. I'll try to get that in more closely and pan down. So it's actually not, losing that much cold or heat from this joint there. So I think the insulation on this is pretty good. But if you had an issue, you could start to see areas where there was a lot of flux. There definitely is around the insulation, but there's no like hot spots or anything that I'm seeing here, or cold spots where it's particularly coming out from the side or anything. If I did kind of let this open a little bit so that some air was escaping, you can start to see as I pull the insulation back, that darker spot starting to form. So that's the kind of thing you'd see if there was damage to your insulation. But overall looks pretty good from the outside here. Interestingly, if you take a look at the power for it, this is the plug strip down here. You can see it's definitely heating up down on the plug strip, so it's definitely drawing a good amount of power. And right now the compressor is actually running. So then let's go ahead and open it up. Again, mostly empty at the moment. Now you can immediately start to see some of the hot and cold spots. So, obviously looking at the colors here, you can see that the air is blowing out of the back of the fridge. And you can see that cold air sort of forming a pattern as it goes down through the inside of the refrigerator. So immediately I could see that if I wanted to store things and I wanted them to be colder, they should probably go right here on the top shelf, right underneath the air inlet there. And if I want things to be on the warmer side, I would want them to be lower down. And you can also see, people I think know this intuitively, but items that you keep on the door, this area definitely seems like it's warmer than the interior of the fridge, just based on being a much lighter color. Looking inside the actual pull-out drawers in here, these are some of the nice cold spots inside, so definitely a good place to store things that need to be kept at a much colder temperature. But overall I think this is doing a pretty good job of cooling, and I can actually pull up a little spot meter. So if I point this at the back here, we're at around 40 something degrees. If the door was closed and hadn't been open for a couple of minutes, this would probably definitely be under 40 degrees. And I've actually done checks on the actual temperature, and it is usually around 38 or so inside. But yeah, you can start to see the cold spots and hot spots. If I wanted something to avoid being frozen or be at a slightly higher temperature, I'd probably want to put it towards the sides, where you can see it's not getting hit with as much of the cold air coming out of the back there. Let's go ahead and take a look inside the freezer. So, in there, definitely telling the story. This is working properly. You can see everything is nice and cold. This is around 15 degrees, so it's well below the 32 degrees you'd want to have for things to remain frozen. But, again, there's some interesting hot and cold spots in here. This little top piece, which I would assume would be colder than the rest, actually doesn't seem to be. Maybe that's meant to be a warmer spot, which is a little bit counterintuitive. But you can see as this starts to heat up, there's a definite contrast between the interior here and the surrounding environment that's, in the 80s actually. So overall, I think this is doing a pretty good job. Let's have a look at the door. As we would expect, these are at a higher temperature. This is already starting to warm up as this is open, but we're getting up above freezing in here versus the interior is still staying at that below freezing temperature. So if there's items you really need to keep cold, like ice cream and that kind of thing, you definitely wouldn't want to put them on the door of a freezer like this. So that's using the FLIR One camera to take a look at my freezer and fridge. If you don't have your own thermal imaging camera, then this can at least give you some insights. If you want to look for the coldest spots in your unit, look for the areas where the air inputs are, and then also avoid the doors. And probably the drawers in there, like I showed, are going to be a good place to keep things you need to keep super cold. So kind of look for that flow of air through your unit, and then place your items that need to be coldest around where the air is flowing into the refrigerator section. If you do want to get your own FLIR One camera, it's a great way to look at a fridge, a freezer, and diagnose and make sure that everything is looking good with it, like I've done here. If you found this helpful in any way, or you want to see more of my thermal imaging videos, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps.